And I looked, my producers gave me his bio and everything, and I'm like, dude, he started his first entry into martial arts was at 5 years old doing judo. And his second discipline was at 12 years old doing wrestling. I mean, it's not like he's not a grappler. Everybody's just so used to him fucking throwing his bombs and his kicks.
Well, I'm on your side with this. We had that talk last night.
I know he's a monster.
Yeah.
And there's guys, and you know this because you work with Marab. There's guys that reach this level of discipline.
Picture this intense moment where he returns to catch his breath, and what happens next is remarkable. He doesn't pause or hesitate, but charges straight back into battle with that same devastating ferocity we associate with Dracus. And then we witness this seismic announcement that has completely shaken the MMA universe, when Joe Rogan, arguably the most influential voice in combat sports, delivered this audacious, and some would argue startling forecast about Khamzat Chimaev absolutely annihilating Sean Strickland at UFC 328. And when I mention annihilating, Rogan specifically used the term kill, which has created literal tsunamis of discussion throughout the entire MMA landscape, with fans, experts, and athletes themselves all buzzing about this statement. But let's slow down here, because we must examine what kill actually signifies in this framework, since obviously we're not discussing anything remotely literal that would be completely absurd. What we're genuinely exploring is a degree of total and absolute supremacy that merely a select few warriors in this sport's entire history have ever truly demonstrated. We're examining the type of showcase that eliminates any question whatsoever, where one combatant operates so far beyond their opponent that it becomes almost disturbing to witness. This comprehensive dialogue, and it's genuinely captivating, includes some profound revelations about Khamzat's remarkably aggressive fighting philosophy, his psychological approach, his preparation techniques, and we explore detailed breakdowns of his previous battles, including both the magnificent victories and the instances where he displayed weaknesses, all providing us this truly engaging window into both the devastating, frightening strength and the possible vulnerabilities that could either transform Rogan's kill forecast into a savage truth when he confronts a determined, relentless striker like Sean Strickland, or, and this becomes the compelling aspect, could reveal the so-called Chechen wolf to completely different obstacles he's never encountered previously.
So hard that he can go out there and fight full blast, which is what's weird to when you watch him fight. Like sometimes it doesn't look as clean.
Yeah, he looks like he's mouth breathing, but he just keeps the same
that was
pace.
A lot of that was the earlier fights before he got his nose fixed. So he got his nose fixed,
all right,
so he could breathe out of his nose.
Well, makes sense.
Changed everything, and then went on a tear after that. That's when he crushed Whitaker. Like the Whitaker one was shocking.
Now let's examine this cardiovascular endurance situation, because the degree of aerobic conditioning we're analyzing here becomes absolutely essential, and Rogan genuinely stresses and reinforces the significance of Khamzat's remarkably profound grappling foundation. And I'm discussing fundamentals here that extend far back in time. This individual began with judo at merely 5 years old. Think about that, and later moved into intensive wrestling preparation at 12 years old. This isn't someone who discovered grappling as a recreational activity in his 20s or chose to diversify for MMA purposes. This represents a lifetime, practically fanatical commitment to perfecting the most controlling, dominating elements of mixed martial arts. While average fans and even some dedicated ones become frequently mesmerized by his spectacular knockout strength, and absolutely it's amazing to observe. It's genuinely this profound technical foundational grappling expertise that might become the absolute finishing move, the fight-ending tool against someone like Sean Strickland. Currently, Strickland's takedown resistance has authentically developed throughout recent years, and you can observe it in his competitions. He's dedicated effort to that element, but here's the crucial point, and this becomes vital to grasp. He's never, and I emphasize never, confronted someone with this mixture of unending pressure, elite technical grappling, and pure physical power and skill that Khamzat delivers to every encounter. This grappling foundation ensures that Khamzat consistently possesses a definitive victory route, integrated into his abilities, even when his striking isn't connecting perfectly cleanly that evening. Even when he cannot discover the finishing blow, he can perpetually bring it to the mat and enforce his dominance there. Because, and let's be completely transparent here, we all understand exactly how remarkably tough Dricus truly is. The man seems constructed from something stronger than steel.
Gilbert 170, and maybe Gilbert won that one. Kamaru won.
This particular segment right here demands attention because it genuinely showcases Dricus' duplex, truly remarkable dedication, and his psychological strength, which honestly exceeds all expectations, even when he appears exhausted, even when you believe he might be declining or weakening. He represents the precise type of unstoppable, never-surrender warrior who simply grinds adversaries down through sheer determination and relentless pressure. If Khamzat genuinely intends to eliminate Strickland in the manner Rogan forecasts, he'll require that identical unwavering pressure, that same refusal to surrender, and most importantly, he'll need significantly enhanced cardiovascular conditioning from what we've witnessed in certain previous performances. Sean Strickland and everyone recognizes this about him. He's famous throughout the UFC for his incredible volume, his absolutely granite jaw that appears indestructible. This individual flourishes in those extended brutal battles of endurance, where other competitors collapse. For Khamzat to genuinely control and fulfill Rogan's prediction, he must sustain an absolutely merciless tempo that literally destroys Strickland's resolve, similar to how DDP methodically dismantled Robert Whittaker, just exhausting him round after round until nothing remained. Rogan's evaluation in this section genuinely emphasizes and highlights the essential significance of possessing a profound, nearly unlimited fuel reserve, and that psychological toughness, that absolute unwillingness to surrender, in accomplishing the type of complete authority and supremacy over an elite opponent that we're examining here.
Ouch.
Almost won that one. If it goes longer, probably he does win.
However, that occurred a minute earlier, and then we reach the segment where they discuss how he accepted the bout on extremely short notice, and I must tell you that influences outcomes more than people understand.
You're fighting a dude that walks at 230, so he's not going to have a big strength advantage over him. Yeah, he's going to be the better wrestler, you know, but I just think that Dricus is going to be able to weather the storm and then come out the other side, and it's going to be a problem. And if Khamzat comes in, people are talking about him fighting at us.
The discussion shifts to a more deliberate tempo. Then there's this comprehensive examination about weight, and it provides crucial background information since he's naturally a 170-pound competitor. Like if he's reliably making that 170-pound requirement consistently, then advancing to 185, that represents a substantial difference in how his physique functions and recuperates.
But Arman said the problem was Khamzat overtrained for every fight, and he would always come into fights worn out. And that was the difference between working with Calavita. That they're monitoring his actual recovery. They're making sure they're doing everything scientifically. Calavita, I think his background is in cycling. Like it was in endurance sports.
Yeah. I'm familiar. I'm familiar with him. I know who he's. I know he was TJ's guy.
Nobody knows more about cardio than cycling.
The foundation becomes entirely cardiovascular conditioning, and here's where circumstances become genuinely intriguing, and this represents a vital point that actually questions the complete story of Khamzat's alleged invincibility. Rogan introduces and emphasizes how both Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman, who are natural welterweights competing at 170 pounds, forced Khamzat to the complete edge of loss, brought him into challenging competitive territory where he appeared human. And consider this, Usman even accepted that bout on remarkably short notice, with minimal time to prepare or develop specifically for Khamzat's approach. If these 170-pounder smaller individuals moving upward or accepting brief notice competitions could survive the initial assault and endure against a significantly larger physically superior Khamzat who competes in a higher weight division, what does that genuinely signify for a complete established middleweight like Sean Strickland, who's been fighting at 185 throughout his entire UFC journey? Strickland's endurance becomes legendary in this sport, and his capacity to absorb enormous punishment while continuing forward represents one of his signature traits. This might make him a comparable nightmare opponent for Khamzat, particularly if the contest extends past the opening round or two into championship territory. It powerfully indicates that Rogan's kill forecast depends completely, and I mean absolutely, on Khamzat's capability to secure a finish early to catch Strickland before he establishes his pace, or he risks being pulled into those challenging waters where his conditioning questions emerge and where Strickland historically dominates.
Started strong. There's a certain amount. He was counting how many minutes he was just standing in front of him.
The conversation centers on how the complete situation, the entire challenge, fundamentally revolves around. Cardiovascular endurance, pure and simple.
His fight with Gilbert and Kamaru Usman, he had the exact amount of time. He goes for 3 minutes and whatever seconds he was just standing in front of him.
Bro,
when he was saying that for both guys.
Kamaru was coming on strong in that third round.
I know. He was coming on strong.
If that was a 5-round fight, I bet the betting would shift. I bet
For sure. Oh, yeah,
DraftKings-
100%.
Yeah.
He started
think
coming
so,
on
too.
at the end of the second.
Yes.
He started to,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
In the
that's what I
third
thought.
round, it was
Last
like
half of the
clear,
fight was
yeah.
all Usman, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, but it is impressive the way that motherfucker can shoot from halfway across the...
This discovery about Khamzat incorporating and training extensively with Sam Calavita, who represents an endurance specialist emerging from the professional cycling arena where cardiovascular excellence becomes everything, represents potentially a tremendous paradigm shift for his career path. The transcript emphasizes and clarifies that his previous conditioning problems, the ones that troubled him in competitions, originated from chronic excessive training. He was essentially exhausting his physique before he even entered the octagon, arriving on fight night already drained and depleted rather than energized and explosive. If this new scientifically supported methodology to training recovery and scheduling genuinely enables Khamzat to enter the octagon completely refreshed with a full energy reserve and peak performance, it significantly enhances the probability of Rogan's kill prediction transforming into a devastating reality against Strickland. Envision this: a completely conditioned Khamzat with his inherently relentless pressure, his technical expertise, and his raw strength all functioning at maximum effectiveness could potentially overpower Strickland in a manner that he truly hasn't faced in his career, completely eliminating those previous weaknesses and cardiovascular issues that competitors like Burns and Usman managed to exploit in those tight competitive battles.
Too, like, I don't know, do you know Pat Downey?
Yes.
All right, well, I've known him since he's a little kid, and he was
He's a
in
beast.
Khamzat's camp and said, like, he said his wrestling, he goes, wrestling is, like, real good. He said he's got top-notch wrestling. Like,
Yeah.
he talked about, he said, we probably both did better with each other than you would think. Like, he did better with wrestling, and I did better with the jiu-jitsu, he said, but, he said, like, he said the guy's a beast. Said he's strong, he said he's a high-level wrestler.
Schaub was down there watching him train. And, you know, they asked Schaub, they asked Schaub to spar with him. He's like, fuck you.
Then there's this instance where someone declares that he would have been victorious in both those encounters, meaning both the Burns and Usman competitions, if specific circumstances had been altered, and that's quite a significant assertion to present.
Khamzat's speed is a factor. It's a big factor with his hand speed. He's, you know, people forget because, like, what he did to Kevin Holland, the way he could ragdoll guys on the ground, but what he did to Gerald Meerschaert is pretty fucking spooky.
That represents an exceptionally effective strike. It's genuinely an excellent punch. Absolutely, and strategically sound.
Sharp
No,
and
he's
straight
a
down the
very
middle.
well-rounded guy.
He's fucking good standing up, man.
Yeah.
He's good standing up, and that's where it's going to be weird. That's where I want to see, because Duplessis makes everybody look stupid.
However, let's examine those previous battles with Burns and Usman because they expose a genuinely essential question that nobody appears to be raising loudly enough, which is what precisely occurs if Khamzat doesn't secure that early conclusion he's pursuing. The analysis from those competitions reveals multiple troubling moments where he would simply remain stationary, inactive, not advancing the action, actually permitting his adversaries time to recuperate, catch their breath, and even stage substantial comebacks that placed him in jeopardy. This creates a very serious threat to Rogan's kill prediction when we're discussing confronting Sean Strickland specifically, since Strickland's complete strategy, his entire combat philosophy and approach gets constructed around consistent never-ending pressure and systematically exhausting opponents round after round. He's not the kind of fighter who's going to permit Khamzat to rest, recover, or take a break at any moment. If Khamzat cannot sustain his initial explosiveness throughout the contest and returns to those periods of inactivity or defensiveness that we observed previously, he opens himself completely to Strickland's unrelenting tempo and his technical boxing potentially transforming what Rogan predicted would be a kill into a punishing, exhausting war that reaches the scorecards. Someone mentions that actually he's quite similar in terms of combat style.
Man,
Slippery as fuck. If
sure.
you don't want to cheat, you can bend the rules because it's not cheating.
I mean, Khamzat is when he gets on top of somebody, man. You definitely don't see guys getting them off of you. So,
well, when you got a guy who's got, I mean, that actually might not be a bad idea. Like, giving them those tracksuit things
to get warm up with it.
Might not be a bad idea because you
wasn't-
totally can do that. Like, no one could stop you from doing that.
Whitaker was defending okay when he was down there. Well, I mean, everybody remembers his teeth getting shattered, but before that, he wasn't defending
likely he would have survived because Kamaru survived it too.
Then there's this compelling segment where someone mentioned I'm 40 years old, which provides background for training choices and these confirmations from legitimately elite wrestlers like Pat Downey, who's competed at the absolute pinnacle of wrestling globally. Verify beyond question that Khamzat's superior grappling qualifications aren't merely promotional hype, they're authentically world-class. The genuine article, this foundational ability becomes truly the cornerstone of Rogan's kill prediction when you analyze it completely, since Sean Strickland's defensive wrestling is certainly competent. He's worked diligently on it, and it's developed, but we must be practical here against a monster of Khamzat's level with his combination of power technique and relentless pressure. It's a completely different degree of challenge that Strickland hasn't genuinely encountered before. The capability to completely determine where the fight occurs to take adversaries down at will whenever he chooses, and to control them on the mat with overwhelming pressure represents absolutely Khamzat's most direct, most dependable route to a dominant, possibly career-changing victory over Strickland. There's even this revealing moment where Brendan Schwab outright refuses to grapple with Khamzat even casually or for light training, and that rejection speaks complete volumes about the intensity, the power, and the danger that Khamzat brings to every single preparation session, and that's not something you witness regularly. Training partners declining to engage even lightly.
Gilbert, his guard, kept him out of it.
Yep.
You got to have a decent guard. Because he don't like it. When Gilbert started moving his hips, he said, nah, I'm out of here.
Gilbert's actually really world-class jiu-jitsu.
Oh, hell
World
yeah.
class.
Gilbert's a stud.
World class. Yeah, Gilbert's dangerous as fuck everywhere. You know, it was interesting watching him roll with Rockhold, because I know that, you know, it's not like Rockhold was in camp and prepared for this, and this is Rockhold at its best. I don't even know how much he had been training, but Khamzat just handled him. Handled him. And we know how good Rockhold is.
Yeah, very good on the floor.
Bro.
Listen, what's so exciting about it is there's a chance he could just take him down and do what he did to every.
Beyond merely the grappling supremacy, Rogan also showcases and genuinely stresses Khamzat's striking velocity and authentic knockout strength, specifically referencing the absolutely terrifying conclusion of Gerald Meerschaert, which was devastating to witness. That technical, precise, and straight through the center punching becomes a significant weapon in Khamzat's collection, another instrument in his arsenal, which could absolutely produce the kill that Rogan predicts against Strickland. While Strickland has established this legendary reputation for possessing an iron jaw, and he depends heavily on attack volume to secure victories, he's not entirely immune to power strikes, since nobody is Khamzat's capability to flawlessly combine the threat of takedowns with explosive striking sequences makes him an absolute nightmare to anticipate, prepare for, and defend against in real time, creating a unique challenge that could overwhelm Strickland, standing just as easily and brutally as he could dominate him on the ground.
And if he doesn't, how fucked is he?
He has no other way. I don't think I think take down
way.
and smash. That's what he wants.
Right.
That's what he makes no, you know.
Yeah, you can't adjust
he's not
now.
disguising it.
Yeah,
You can't adjust now in the world
Yeah,
championship fight. You got to just hit the gas.
Yeah, I
It's a
think
sprint.
instinct's going to kick in, and he is a sprinter. You know what I mean?
But that's the question: is can he sprint for 5 rounds? Because we know DDP can.
Right.
Him and Sean Strickland, they were ready to have heart attacks at the end of that fight. They were ready to have heart attacks. This is probably the most elevated heart level we've ever seen
You gotta give
in
it
a
to
world
Sean
championship fight.
getting his nose busted like.
absolutely non-stop relentless, and you cannot allow this to continue. With that, you understand he's like, it's simply hard work. It's exactly that, yes. There is definitely that possibility, absolutely, because he's so remarkably skilled on the mat, and he emerges so aggressively right from the opening bell. Gilbert Burns' world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guard functioned as an essential fight-preserving defense against Khamzat's heavy ground strikes, preventing the kill that Rogan might picture, and keeping him in the battle. This genuinely shows that while Khamzat is absolutely dominant on the ground, elite level, defensive grapplers can survive his attacks, however, and this becomes important to mention the following reference to Khamzat's manhandling Luke Rockhold in training. A former UFC champion and elite grappler himself emphasizes his pure power and skill when he genuinely wants to impose his will on someone. Sean Strickland doesn't possess Burns' Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu credentials or that same grounds game background, but his defensive intelligence, his fight awareness, and his pure determination could present a similar challenge to Khamzat's Rogan's kill prediction. Strongly suggests that Strickland will have no response, that he'll be overwhelmed. But history clearly demonstrates that even when facing a powerful dominant ground game, a finish isn't always guaranteed against a resilient opponent who refuses to surrender someone. Says proceed, encouraging continuation, and adds possibly suggesting uncertainty, and you know what we were discussing.
Achieve a level of cardiovascular performance that's just above everybody else's, and then they maintain it. Like, they get that advantage and they keep pushing it and they slowly keep adding on to it. Like, you're seeing Merab now. Like,
oh my God.
Particularly in the second O'Malley fight, you're seeing just like a totally different beast.
Here's something that directly confronts the worries about his conditioning. Since he suffered a staph infection, he had a serious staph infection entering the second fight, and that's precisely why his performance was so lackluster and disappointing. This segment is remarkably revealing, like genuinely significant, because it directly confronts the heart of Rogan's kill prediction, and explicitly names Sean Strickland as the adversary. A fundamental question of whether Khamzat can sprint can sustain that explosive tempo for 5 complete rounds is absolutely essential to this entire conversation. We know definitively that Strickland possesses the cardio and the mental resilience to push through absolute wars, brutal 5-round battles, as clearly demonstrated by his grueling fight with duplexes where both fighters went to hell and back. If Khamzat cannot finish early, if he cannot eliminate Strickland in the first 2 rounds, his reputation as a sprinter, as someone who explodes early but might fade, could very well become his downfall against a relentless volume puncher like Strickland, who just keeps advancing. This powerfully suggests that Rogan's kill prediction depends heavily on an early explosive finish, because a prolonged battle against Tarzan against Strickland's constant pressure and pace could completely reverse the script entirely due to conditioning differences and pure willpower. Reaching this level of performance, this elite tier requires something special.
Talking a little last night, and you know, Khamzat's a bad motherfucker. I don't know about his mind yet.
Well, this is the thing. This is what I was getting at.
Pulls out of a bunch of fights, you know.
Arman Sarukian, who also just pulled out of a fight.
Right.
But Arman Sarukian, but Arman said the problem was Khamzat overtrained for every fight, and he would always come into fights worn out.
It's going to be fascinating to observe if it enters deep water. That's what it's going to become. And the speaker responds, I believe that agreeing with a point made, but then adds, man, if a state of mind, if that mental component, if he believes it, meaning that he genuinely believes it. Rogan explores deeply, discussing the rare category of fighters who achieve and maintain elite cardiovascular performance at the highest level, identifying Merab Dvalishvili as a prime example of this relentless cardio machine that never stops. This level of non-stop relentless cardiovascular output is precisely exactly what Khamzat would need to manifest and make real Rogan's kill prediction against Sean Strickland. Since Strickland is a cardio machine himself, that's undeniable, and any fighter who's aiming for true dominance over him must be able to match and exceed his output. If Khamzat has truly elevated his conditioning through his new scientific training approach with the cycling coach, as we discussed earlier, he might actually be able to replicate this relentless pace, preventing Strickland from ever finding his rhythm, settling into his game, and ultimately breaking him down systematically. This candid, brutally honest assessment of Khamzat's mental fortitude, or more accurately, the lack thereof in certain past situations, is a critical counterpoint that challenges Rogan's kill prediction. The fact that he's withdrawn from multiple scheduled fights over the years, and allegedly overtrained for others arriving depleted, raises some serious questions about his ability to truly push through adversity when it really counts, when the pressure is highest. Sean Strickland, who's renowned throughout the sport for his mental toughness and his unwavering, almost delusional self-belief, excels at breaking opponents mentally, getting in their heads, and making them quit internally. If Khamzat hasn't fully addressed these underlying mental and preparation issues, Strickland might very well be the exact fighter to expose that vulnerability, turning what's predicted to be an easy dominant win into a grueling, potentially career-defining struggle for the Chechen Wolf that tests everything he's got. It's really interesting because I know he started training with this expert. Someone mentions likely referring to the Calavita situation. The idea of Khamzat fighting at a slower, more measured pace is a double-edged sword for Rogan's prediction, and it's worth examining both sides. While fighting slower might conserve energy for later rounds, it goes completely against his innate natural aggressive style, the Chechen Wolf mentality, and the transcript suggests it could actually play directly into an opponent's hands. Sean Strickland thrives on imposing his pace and constantly pressuring fighters, breaking them down with volume. If Khamzat can't immediately overpower Strickland in the early going and is forced to fight more strategically and patiently, it could lead directly to that deep water scenario where Strickland has a distinct advantage due to his championship-level cardio. This highlights a potential significant flaw in the kill narrative that Rogan's pushing, because a slower, more tactical Khamzat might struggle to finish a durable and relentless opponent like Strickland, who gets more comfortable as the fight goes longer.
And then come out the other side, and it's going to be a problem. And if Khamzat comes in, people are talking about him fighting at a slower pace. Well, that's not his style. And if he fights at a slower pace, I think that plays into Dricus's hands, because it will allow him
he's gonna make
to
him
move
fight
forward
fast.
and
Yeah,
do
for
the,
sure.
and pressure him and things.
Well,
So